My name is Harper Lewis. I'm 34, and I live in Seattle, Washington. By profession, I'm the chief financial officer of a luxury interior design firm. By role at home, I'm Mason's wife, the man I once believed was my forever. He was my college sweetheart, the boy who became my husband. We'd spent 11 years together, 6 of them married. For a long time, I believed nothing could sever the bond we had built. But endings don't always arrive as explosions or betrayals that make the ground shake. Sometimes, they begin quietly like a single notification on a locked phone. That morning started like any other. I woke earlier than Mason and was brushing my teeth when his iPhone lit up on the bathroom counter. A message appeared from a name I didn't recognize. Can't wait for the weekend. The cabin, the wine, and that pink lace set. Counting the hours, I froze. Not because the message was daring, but because it was undeniable. Toothbrush in hand, foam dissolving in my mouth, I stared as my feet went cold against the tile. Behind the frosted glass, water streamed over Mason's back while he showered. Oblivious, preparing for another ordinary workday. My gaze stayed, fixed on the phone until the screen dimmed again. I didn't unlock it. I didn't need to. It wasn't shock that gripped MIT was certainty. For months, I had suspected. Mason had taken 2 last-minute business trips, leaving me alone in our once warm house for endless weekends. He started bringing his phone into the shower, guarding it like a secret. His laptop suddenly had a new password. And those eyes, once soft when they looked at me, now skimmed past me as though I were a fixture he'd grown weary of. I used to whisper to myself, "Don't be paranoid, Harper. Long relationships fade. Don't stir trouble over nothing." But in that moment, I wanted to slap my past self and say, "Stop ignoring what's right in front of you." I washed my face, dried my hands, and applied my makeup as if it were any other morning. My hands didn't shake. Instead, I felt hollow, as though I were watching someone else's life through glass. When I stepped out, Mason stood before the bedroom mirror, tightening his tie. He smiled at me like always, unaware that everything had shifted. "This weekend I've got a client seminar in Portland," he said, adjusting his collar. "I'll be home late Sunday." I nodded and replied flatly, "Don't forget a heavy coat, it gets cold at night." I didn't mention the message. I didn't ask who was waiting for him. I wasn't going to disturb the polished act he had perfected, because in my head, something else had already begun forming and I wouldn't speak until it was complete. Mason had a ritual. Thursday nights, tennis, 2 whiskeys, and a deep sleep. I knew him well enough to know he wouldn't stir. I also knew his phone would open with his right index finger. So that night, as he snored with the smell of whiskey and shampoo lingering in the air, I lifted his hand and pressed it gently to the sensor. The phone unlocked with a click. A chill washed over me. The earlier message was only the tip of something much darker. Buried in those texts was another life, one Mason had been living all along. Her name was Claire Donovan. She wasn't a naive young fling. She was 38, a medical sales representative from Tacoma, sharp-witted and married. Married to Tyler Donovan, an architect with his own sustainable design firm in Bellevue. I even found him on LinkedIn. Tall, stubbled, a tired but kind smile. Claire's messages made it clear. Tyler will be in San Jose all week. The cabins, all hours. I didn't sleep that night. Every message cut deeper, carving through memories of Mason's supposed trainings in Portland or client dinners. By morning, exhaustion gave way to resolve. I opened my laptop and drafted a message over and over until finally, I hit send. "Hi Tyler, this is Harper Lewis. I believe your wife Claire and my husband Mason are having an affair. I can share proof if you're willing to talk. My number is 26,557,321. My palms were damp as soon as the message left my phone. 3 hours later, it rang. Tyler's voice was steady but carried a tremor. "Is this some kind of joke?" "I wish it were," I answered, throat dry. "I have texts, photos, and their plans for the cabin at Chelan Lake." Silence stretched. Then, "What do you want to do?" I gripped the phone harder. "Would you want to meet them there with me before the wine is uncorked? Before the coats are even off?" Another pause, then a slow exhale. "Okay, but let's meet first. I want to see what you have." We agreed on Saturday at a cafe in Ellensburg, halfway between Seattle and Chelan. I arrived early, watching the parking lot until Tyler stepped inside. His tall frame, brown coat, and weary stride gave him away instantly. He slid into the booth without pleasantries. I handed him my phone. Each swipe through the messages tightened. His jaw. When he reached a photo Claire had sent her feet on a hardwood floor, he closed his eyes. "That's my design," he muttered. "I thought it was just distance. She never wanted therapy. Now I know why." After nearly an hour, he said quietly, "I still have a key to the cabin. Claire doesn't know." I nodded. "Mason thinks I'll be in Spokane this weekend. He won't suspect." "Then we'll get there first," Tyler replied firmly. "No shouting, no scenes. Just the truth." The plan formed from our broken pieces. Not revenge. Not a trap. Just exposure. I had once brushed off the Uber receipts I found, which were traced back to a neighborhood 40 minutes from his office. Convincing myself he'd simply stopped for drinks with friends. Tyler confessed that he too had ignored signs. The night he walked in on Claire smiling at her phone, only for her to slam it shut as though nothing had happened. "I knew something wasn't right," he admitted, "but I forced myself to believe her. At least until you reached out." Outside, the sky dulled to gray. "The clock flashing for 12 p.m. less than 2 hours, I murmured, adjusting a final wineglass. Tyler glanced at me. "Are you nervous?" "Not of the truth," I answered softly. "Only of forgiving what should never be forgiven." He studied me for a beat before nodding. "I'll remember that." We moved on to the porch. The lake so eerily still it felt as though time itself had stalled. By 5:57, tension coiled through the cabin like a pulled wire, ready to snap. Tyler and I sat across from the front door, 2 glasses of red wine waiting. Beside, a bottle Claire once said was the only thing that made a weekend feel special. A thick envelope sat on the armchair. Inside were printouts, screenshots, credit card records, and even a recording of Mason's assistant confirming he had no meetings in Portland. Then we heard tires grinding against gravel. Tyler looked at me. I gave a single nod. A black SUV rolled up. Mason climbed out first, leather jacket on, suitcase in one hand and a gift bag in the other. Claire followed, carrying pale pink tulips. They were laughing, 2 lovers arriving as if for a private getaway. The door opened. Claire walked in first, her smile vanishing. Mason collided into her, then lifted his eyes just in time to meet mine. He froze. The gift bag slipped from his hand. A champagne bottle tumbled free, smashing across the hardwood, its sharp scent filling the room. Claire's flowers fell, petals scattering like the wreckage of everything they had built. "Welcome to your retreat," I said evenly. "We've set the table with wine, chairs, and the truth." Mason stiffened. Claire shrank back, her gaze darting desperately toward Tyler. "Harper, please, it's not what you think," Mason began. I tilted my head. "Not what I think." Then explained the cabin texts, the wine purchases, and the Uber receipts to Claire's neighborhood. "Are those coincidences too?" Tyler rose. "And what about me, Claire? You told me you were attending a seminar with a coworker. You even texted good night, miss you before switching your phone off. Was that all my imagination?" Claire crumbled, hiding her face. "Tyler, don't, what?" His voice was ice. "Don't stand here and watch my wife betray me in the home I designed with my own hands." I lifted the envelope and set it down firmly on the table. "I didn't come unprepared," I said. 48 hours of digging, call logs, messages, even photographs from that company wedding you both attended. The one you swore was a guy's trip, Mason." Claire's face drained of color. Mason tore the folder open, skimmed a few pages, then slammed it shut. His eyes blazed. "You were spying on me." I was confirming what I already knew, I shot back. "Because you were too careful. I had to be thorough." Claire collapsed into a chair, hair falling loose as tears streaked down her face. Tyler stared out the window, needing air. "How long, Claire?" he asked without turning. Her voice cracked. 7 months. A knot twisted in my chest. Mason clenched his fists, stepping closer. "Harper, I was wrong, but it doesn't mean I stopped loving you." I retreated a step. "If that's what you call love, bringing another woman here, to the place where we lost our child, then you can keep it." The silence that followed was brutal. I fixed my gaze on him. "You can leave now, or you can sit and listen, but don't mistake me for someone willing to forgive. If that's what you think, you've misunderstood who I am." Tyler rose, weary. "I need air." "So do I agreed. We stepped outside, leaving 2 broken lovers drowning in their lies. The lake was still calm, but inside me, a storm had begun. When we returned, Mason and Claire hadn't moved, both avoiding each other's eyes. I dragged a chair across from Mason and placed a second folder on the table. Tyler sat beside me, glaring at Claire. Mason, I began. Have you ever told Claire why we've kept separate finances for 6 years? His body went rigid. Harper, for me too, I cut him off. Claire, maybe you never knew. In 2015, Mason racked up over $42,000 in gambling debt. His parents paid it off in secret to save his career. After that, I had no choice but to separate our accounts, not out of distrust, but because I knew how easily he could hide. Claire's head snapped toward him. You never told me. Because it's irrelevant to today, Mason shot back. Irrelevant, I pressed. You cheated and excused it by calling me cold and busy. Yet you left out that I've been paying the mortgage on this cabin while you gambled with your friends in Tacoma. Mason lowered his head in silence. Tyler now turned to Claire, and you told me the bank delayed the roof loan. But really, you sent $10,000 to a rehab facility in Spokane. To your brother, Jackson Donovan. Isn't that true? Claire's lips trembled. I didn't want you to worry. No, Tyler said, calm but sharp. You didn't want me to know. You've lived 2 lives, one with me, one with Mason, and both were built on lies. The room thickened with silence. This is what you two share, I said quietly. Neither of you has ever been honest, not with us, not even with each other. Claire broke into sobs. I never meant for it to spiral, but you let it. I cut in. And now the damage is done. What hurts most isn't just betrayal, it's that you can't even admit you were wrong. Mason's eyes burned red. I'm sorry, Harper, truly. Sorry doesn't rewrite the truth, I replied. And if love ever existed, it can't salvage a marriage that's rotten to its core. Tyler stood, drained. Do you know what hurts most, Claire? That you never thought I was worth the truth? That you believed I wasn't strong enough to carry it with you. Her face crumpled, but she said nothing. I rose as well. I didn't come here to salvage love. I came here to reclaim truth. Mason, you don't love me. You love the admiration. Claire, you don't love Tyler. You love the escape. I let the words hang. Love isn't enough. Without trust, respect, and honesty, it's nothing more than a pretty illusion. Then Claire suddenly lurched to her feet, eyes red but blazing with something new: fear, confusion, desperation. There's something I haven't told you, she whispered. Tyler stiffened. What is it? Her eyes darted to Mason, then back to me. I'm pregnant. The room froze. The clocks ticking thundered in the silence. Mason shot upright. What? What did you just say? Claire nodded, trembling. I only found out last week. I planned to tell Mason here, at the cabin. Tyler's voice was faint. Is it mine? Claire's tear-filled eyes met his. Yes, I'm certain. Mason and I were always careful. My mind went blank, then flooded all at once. None of us had prepared for this. A confrontation had suddenly become something else entirely. Mason gaped at Claire. You're carrying his child. Don't call it his, she snapped, finally steadying. I was wrong to cheat, but I never lied about my feelings. Tyler clenched his fists, turning away. Mason's rage drained into something hollow: shock, humiliation, maybe even emptiness. I drew a breath. Enough. We're done here. I pulled a final folder from my bag, placing it firmly on the table in front of Mason. This is the divorce petition. Along with every financial record you'll need, I've already signed. I had already moved our shared assets into a separate account, all legally handled and confirmed by my lawyer. There was nothing secret about it. Mason sat in silence, offering no response. I told him he could review the paperwork or refuse to sign. But my decision wasn't changing. Claire lowered herself back into her chair, one hand resting protectively on her stomach. Tyler's voice was steady, though low. I'll need time to absorb everything, but if you're carrying this child, I'll step up. The baby isn't to blame. Claire's eyes welled as she nodded. I know, and thank you. Thank you for still being able to say that. I looked between them, then turned toward Mason. If you have anything left to say, now's the moment. His head finally lifted, his eyes red and exhausted. Harper, this isn't worth destroying everything we've built. We had so many good years together. He was right, we did. I acknowledged it with a nod. But then I spoke the truth. You chose to throw that away for a fleeting thrill with someone who isn't even honest with her own husband. I need to protect the rest of my life. Tyler rose, polite yet resolute. I'll wait in the car. Harper, if you need me later, call. We still have things to talk about. I gave him a grateful nod. His calm grounded me. Claire stepped toward me hesitantly. I know I don't deserve to apologize, but I never imagined it would spiral this far. I met her gaze, no longer angry, only clear. The most dangerous people aren't the obvious villains. They're the ones who convince themselves they're good while they keep lying. She froze, then turned away. I gathered the folder, drew a pen from my coat pocket, and signed every page at the bottom corner. When I set the pen down, I felt lighter than I had in years. Free of holding together a marriage that was already rotted. Free of pretending to trust a man unworthy of it. Looking at Mason, the man who once embodied my youth, my dream of family, I said simply, "Good luck. You'll need more than that." Tyler and I left the cabin around 9 that evening. Inside, Mason remained slumped in his chair while Claire curled in the corner, clutching her stomach as though the only thing left to hold onto was the life she'd just confessed was growing inside her. No one escorted us out. No one needed to. The crunch of dried leaves beneath our shoes marked the quiet closing of a chapter. At the car, Tyler opened the door for me before taking the driver's seat. Before starting the engine, he glanced over. "Want to grab food? There's a little spot in downtown Chalon open late. Not fancy, but their chicken soup isn't bad." I laughed an unsteady, surprised laugh, but a genuine one. "Yeah, let's eat. I'm starving." We ended up in a small diner, the warm yellow lighting soft against the worn wooden table. Neither of us dissected what had just happened. Instead, we traded gentler stories: how Tyler once almost abandoned architecture to enroll in pastry school. How I once dreamed of opening a bookstore cafe in Santa Barbara until Mason dismissed it as unrealistic. When dinner ended, we said goodbye with a simple handshake and a quiet nod. We weren't lovers, but I had gained something even sturdier, a friend who had walked beside me through my darkest night. 6 months later, I stood on the balcony of my little beach house in Port Townsend, tea in hand, waves crashing below. The divorce had finalized in under 2 months thanks to my meticulous preparation documents, evidence, and cleanly divided assets. Mason didn't contest it. Perhaps he knew the longer he dragged it out, the more he'd lose. I secured the majority of what we owned, including a one-time buyout of the old cabin, which I later sold back to him. I had no use for a place haunted by ghosts. Mason, meanwhile, lost his shot at promotion. His boss, Bisia, strict but fair woman, heard whispers through an internal company event. Nothing official was said, but gradually Mason was sidelined, pulled from major projects, reduced to temporarily managing Team B. Claire gave birth last week. Tyler texted, "Baby's here. Healthy girl. Emotions everywhere, but we're trying." Attached was a photo, a tiny hand wrapped around Claire's finger, Tyler's eyes looking at the camera with a tenderness I had never seen before. I don't know if they reconciled as a couple, but they were at least facing themselves honestly now. As for me, I live alone in a quiet home by the sea, not far from Seattle, but peaceful enough that I wake to the wind each morning. I left the CFO title behind and now work freelance as a financial advisor, building my own schedule. No more back-to-back meetings. No more midnight email chains. I've learned to unplug, to rest, to breathe. Tyler and I still check in ever often, but always steady. A quick happy Thanksgiving. A photo of a little French-style cabin in Oregon with a note, "Made me think of you. Beautiful." Sometimes just a 15-minute call to ask, "Are you okay?" I don't need anything else. We had survived one of the longest nights of our lives together. That kind of friendship didn't need labels, just a glance to understand. One evening, I sat on my porch with my favorite book, soft symphonies drifting from a small speaker. I no longer thought about Mason, not with pain, not with regret, only with a quiet calm, like the autumn sea. I had lived through what once seemed impossible, and I had found myself again. On a March morning, I woke early, not to an alarm, not for work, but simply to greet the sunrise. Golden light spilled across the bay windows, washing my little home in clarity. Wrapped in a blanket, tea in hand, I sat in my chair watching the tide. My heart felt unburdened. I no longer saw myself as the woman abandoned. I was someone reborn. Mason had once mattered deeply, but he was never the destination. He was a less expensive one. He taught me that trust should never be handed to someone incapable of protecting it. That love cannot thrive without honesty, and that blind sacrifice erases self-worth. For years I tried to be the perfect wife. Successful, forgiving, gentle, and what was my return? A husband planning his escape behind my back. Yes, it hurt, but the pain became my shoreline, not my drowning. I was no longer that woman crying in her car because her husband changed his password. No longer blaming myself for his distance at night, no longer clutching coffee each morning for a scrap of connection while feeling nothing inside. Now, I am steady, clear, strong enough to walk away from anyone who doesn't deserve me. The last time I saw Mason was at a financial charity event in Seattle. He stood across the room with a glass of wine, thinner, quieter. As I passed, he called softly, "Harper." I turned. He hesitated. "You look well." "I am," I replied. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry." I smiled. No, but you don't need to say it. That's the past. I've chosen the present." He nodded and stepped back. For the first time, he seemed small to me. At home now, I open my windows to the light each morning. I plant lavender and herbs. I return to unfinished dreams. An old manuscript, journal pages, letters to my younger self. I offer financial counseling to divorced women not as a detached expert, but as someone who's lived the fear of starting over. They trust me because I speak not only with numbers but with a heart broken and rebuilt. Tyler still reaches out. Though most of his time belongs to Nora now. She rolled over today. Her smile looks just like Claire's. I'm happy for them, because the pain vanished, but because they learned to face it and heal. I'm not searching for love. I'm not rushing into a relationship to patch a void. I'm finally loving myself first. One weekend, I drove the coastal road playing a playlist Mason once mocked as sentimental. Florence Welch's voice filled the car. I smiled as the wind tangled my hair. Not because the past had disappeared, but because I had finally gone far enough to look back without hurting. I once thought losing love meant the end. It doesn't. It only means the end of what no longer serves you. Making space for what does. If you asked me, now Harper, do you regret anything? I'd answer without hesitation. No, because some people don't come to stay. They come to teach. You, when it's time to leave, my story isn't a tragedy, it's a rebirth. I'm no longer the betrayed wife. I'm a woman who stood back up, healed, and remembered her worth. I don't resent the past. I don't seek revenge. I choose peace, and a life that's mine. Every morning reminds me, loss clears the path for better things. And I'm grateful I had the strength to walk away when it mattered most.